Good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's RelTalk. My name is Carmen Gray, and I will be your moderator for this evening. The RelTalk series is sponsored by Relevate, which is a team of researchers and practitioners dedicated to increasing access to research on relationships. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone to keep their cameras off and keep their mics muted because this presentation will be recorded. This is the final presentation in our 5 presentation series for the fall. Our presenter tonight is Fatin Asnan. Fatin is originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. In spring 2014, she came to the US for the first time to pursue her bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Missouri. She fell in love with the campus and culture and decided to stay for her master's and PhD. Currently, she's in her 4th year of her doctoral program in human development and family science, where she is researching adolescents' career development and culture. According to Fatin, coming to the US and spending her early to late adulthood life in a culture that was completely new to her is probably her biggest accomplishment. And I would agree. I've only done it for 6 weeks and that was a lot. So for years, that's amazing. If Fatin is not studying or working, then you can find her taking pictures with her DSLR camera, writing social media posts, or reading books about culture. Without further ado, I will turn this over to Fatin. The floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Carmen, for that lovely, lovely introduction. All right. Can everyone see my screen? All right. Okay. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. Today, I'll be talking about immigrant adolescents and their career development. And I posed this big question kind of in the middle to preface my presentation, because this is typically what's lingering in adolescents' mind. And usually in middle and high school, adolescents start to think about their future goals, right? And plans and what they're going to do in the future. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I always love to start my presentation with my big why, because some of these experiences help shape my interest in this topic, and also because they're relevant to those who work with youth and want to improve the lives of our youth. I've had the opportunity to host summer programs called Mizzou International Experience here at the University of Missouri. We've had a total of 300 international and US high school students. And at the program, I've met many youth with exciting career aspirations. Like, they all want to do good things in the world. And every year, I've also noticed that students are classed into 3 categories. So first, we have students who know exactly what they want to do after graduating from high school. The students know what their path is going to be and they're set for it. Second, we have students who don't have an idea of what their future goals are. And this is due to so many reasons, right? Maybe they didn't have any opportunity to explore career, or maybe their parents weren't supportive of their goals. And then the final group is for those who are kind of in between. So they have some ideas, but they're also open to exploring other goals. I like this group of students a lot because you can just see their eyes light up when you say, oh, do you know this and this career? Would you like to explore that more? And then another big why also came from my personal experience. So I spent my entire early adulthood in the US, right? And it's far away from my country, far away from Malaysia. And I've gained many experiences that changed my career trajectory. And I know that this experience happened to many other students who are just like me, like adulting in a culture that is so different than our own. And I put this lovely picture here because this was during our summer program right before COVID hit. Right. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the presentation. So in today's agenda, I'll begin with an introduction. So we'll discuss who are immigrant adolescents and some numbers. And then we'll talk about some common needs and concerns about careers. Next, I'll share with you some practical tools that research have used to measure adolescents' career identity styles, as well as some career-specific parenting behaviors. And then we'll end the presentation with final takeaways. And there's some Q&A also, I believe, at the end. All right, let's get started. So who are immigrant adolescents? By general definition, they are those who are not US citizens at birth, but may have become citizens through naturalization. And then the next term is what we call first-generation immigrant children. They are individuals who were born outside of the United States with at least one parent born outside of the US as well. Then we have second-generation immigrant children. So they were born in the US, but at least one parent was born outside of the US. And then we have undocumented immigrants. So undocumented immigrants are those who were born outside of the US, and they're not citizens and they're not legal residents. And then the final term is asylum seekers and refugees. So they are those who need protection due to persecution or fear of persecution because of their race, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, or membership in a particular social group or political groups. All right. Now that we know who immigrant adolescents are, let's talk about statistics. So 1 in 4 US children is an immigrant child. Shocking, right? And this is because immigrants in the US have tripled since 1970. And nearly 2/3 of all immigrant children are between the age of 6 to 17 years old. And this is the age that they begin thinking about future goals. And that's what we're going to focus on today. All right, and then I have this nice little pie chart here. I tried looking at immigrant adolescents' culture of origin, but it is tricky given that we've seen before, there are just so many definitions of immigrant children. And this pie chart represents where their parents come from because it is more accurate to show immigrant families' culture of origin. And we can see from the pie chart that the majority of immigrant parents come from Asia and Mexico, and there are representations from the rest of the world as well. All right, and now I'm going to talk about some cultural values and strengths that immigrant families have. And we need to talk about these values and strengths because they influence how adolescents think about careers. And as a disclaimer, I'm going to talk about these values more broadly because each immigrant family has their own set of unique values. So for example, Chinese Americans may have different values than Mexican Americans. The first value is collectivism and interdependence. It is the idea that individuals need to be responsive to the needs and expectations of others. So it is the emphasis of we versus I. And family who upholds this value, they try to maintain harmony at most times, and they tend to avoid conflict. The second value is filial piety. So children are expected to treat parents with respect and devotion as an appreciation of what parents have done for them. The next up, we have the value of education. So in many immigrant families, education is seen as a marker for success. Children need to work hard in school because many parents believe that when children do well in school, they're more likely to get a good job as well. And then the final value is respeto, that is for Latinx families, or what Asian families would usually face. So children need to behave themselves in public and to respect authorities so they don't embarrass the family. Now, here's my favorite part about studying this topic. Of course, it's not fun talking about concerns and worries, but this shows that it's important to bring in adolescents' voices to the table so that we can do something about it, right? Many of these concerns come from qualitative studies, which they interviewed immigrant adolescents themselves. So the first concern is, what am I interested in? Very common, right? And then, what will my family think about my career goal? What if my parents are against it? Now, pay attention to the red bolded terms because those are the biggest influence in children's career. Oh, my parents don't know anything about, put a career in there. I need to do well in school so I can get a good job. Now, this sounds positive for adolescents, but there are actually many studies that show that pressure to do well in school is related to poor mental health in immigrant adolescents. Are there people who look like me in this job? Now, people who look like me is important because minority status is important for immigrant adolescents. There's many stereotypes and prejudice when it comes to minority status, and we'll talk more about that later. I'm a minority. Do they even want to hire me? I will just put a stereotypical career in there because that's what people like me do. Again, this is related to the stereotypes of what we think certain race or ethnic group would have, whatever that may be, right? So for example, when we walk into a grocery store, who would you think you'd most likely see there? Right. Now, these are the concerns that adolescents feel, but how about anything that is outside of themselves? Now, here are some common barriers at the societal level. First is the model minority stereotype. This is unfortunately really prevalent among Asian immigrants. So this stereotype brings this idea that Asian people are the model minority who work hard who get a high prestige job. And this is harmful for two reasons. So first, it holds people of Asian descent to an unrealistic standard. And second, it's basically saying that other ethnic minority groups like African Americans or Mexican Americans just don't work as hard. And we would typically see this question, why don't you work hard like those Asians, being asked to Asian immigrants? Next is perpetual foreigner stereotype. It is the idea that immigrants are constantly being alienated because of how they look, their work ethic, and what they eat, regardless of how long they've been living in the US. Now, these are barriers at the school and workplace level. First, we have the teachers who fail to recognize the challenges of educational system differences and know that the school system of where the adolescents come from may be different than what's typical here in the US. And adolescents may find it a struggle to fit in the system. And then minorities are being marginalized, feeling isolated, racial aggression, anything of that nature, because minorities are constantly being treated differently at the workplace. And then immigrant adolescents also struggle with English language fluency and adjusting to the mainstream culture. And remember that immigrant adolescents also include those who were born outside of America. So those who just moved to the US may struggle with English and with adjusting to the culture. And this may limit opportunities to explore careers that are more widely available in the host culture. And then finally, immigrants may also experience discrimination at the workplace, and especially discrimination during the hiring process. Now that we've learned about the strengths of immigrant families and barriers that immigrants face, what does this mean to adolescents' career? So on the positive side, parents are seen as a social support. And when parents are involved and know more about adolescents' career needs and worries, adolescents see barriers like internalized racism as less of a challenge. Adolescents also feel more supported and heard, which then increase their confidence and self-esteem to explore and make decisions about career. Now, on the not so positive side, those who are less adjusted to the US culture may feel less belong, and they may also less likely to explore careers. Adolescents may see certain family values as a burden because they feel obligated to choose careers that fulfill their parents' wishes instead of what they want. They may end up choosing a stereotypical career. Though this may not be harmful to immigrant adolescents, it may reflect that they have limited perspective of what career they can choose from and perpetuate the stereotypes even more. And then finally, if immigrant adolescents feel like parents imposing a certain career onto them, they may feel less supported and less likely to come to parents for career guidance. Now, I would like to share some practical tools for you to know where your child is in regard to their career journey. And maybe if you have a younger sibling or friends who are still in the phase of finding what they want to do, knowing this identity style can help them. And what I'm going to show you is a scale that researchers have used, but you can also use it sort of like a quiz or assessment. And for each sentence, you would rate it from strongly agree to strongly disagree. So the first category is avoidant. Some example items are, I try not to think about making decisions about my career path as long as I can. I'm not really thinking about my career path right now, and I will figure it out later. And then the second category is normative. Example items are, I strive to achieve the career goals that my family and friends hold for me. I adopt and follow the career path I was brought up with. Now, this is a style that is more commonly with Asian immigrants. And then the last category is informational. The example items are, when making career decisions, I like to have as much information as possible. I spend a lot of time reading or talking to others, trying to develop a career path that makes sense to me. And this is where we want our child to be in. So they can kind of collect the information on their own and process it themselves. Now, this is an assessment for parents to know about your parenting behaviors in regard to your child's career interest. Again, it's the same deal as before. You would rate it from strongly agree to disagree. So first we have the supportive parents who talk to my child about career interests and abilities. I encourage my child to seek information about careers they're interested in. And then the second category is interference. I have my own ideas about my child's future career and try to influence them. I would talk to my child out of a career I don't like. And then the third type of parents are lack of engagement. I'm not really interested in my child's future career. I cannot support my child's career preparation because I don't know enough. And so for this one, we want to strive to be a supportive parent because that's a good thing for our children, right? And if you fall under the interference or lack of engagement, maybe this is what this presentation is for. Now we're almost reaching the end of my presentation. And as a recap, here's what I hope you learn and get from this presentation. First, I hope that we recognize and challenge our own internalized stereotypes about immigrant adolescents. Immigrant adolescents are capable of doing big things and contributing to the society. And having stereotypes such as the model minority and perpetual foreign stereotypes may be harmful in limiting their career aspirations. And then second, know that contexts matter. Each immigrant family is unique, and we learn the values and strengths of immigrant families, but ultimately each family may practice its values differently. So for instance, Korean Americans in LA may be less collectivistic than Korean Americans in Columbia, Missouri. And then agency is important for adolescents. And this is true for all adolescents, regardless of their ethnic or racial background. And that's why it's important to center and bring their voices to the table so they can feel heard and supported. Next one is my favorite. So here's a tip for parents. Be supportive to your child's career interests. Listen to what your child has to say about their future goal. Take note of their interests and what they're good at. Children want to feel validated and cared for, so encourage them to explore and make mistakes in their career adventure. The sky's not the limit anymore. Finally, and probably the most important is, I hope that we strive to support and advocate for immigrant adolescents. So you may not know or work directly with immigrants, but chances are there is an immigrant individual in your classroom, your workplace, or maybe in your community. They may experience various challenges like adjusting to the US culture and finding careers that fit for them. So you, being a support and advocate, can be really meaningful. And now I want to end my presentation with this quote. Our children are capable of everything they set out to do, and we are never alone as parents if we ask for support. With that, thank you for making the time to listen to my presentation. I'd also like to thank the Relevant team for the opportunity and space to share my interests with you. If you'd like to learn more about this topic, you can connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
What an awesome talk, Fatin.
Thank you.
Like, it was really amazing. It's like, so we would like to use this time for any questions that the audience may have. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will ask them to Fatin for you guys. But to start it off, I have a question of my own, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna drink my water while you do that.
No, you're totally fine. So as I was listening, I was thinking about the young people who fall into the category of being avoidant. And I was wondering how parents could support them in thinking about their futures, because that can be kind of scary. Like, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And that seems like vast and never ending. So how could parents be supportive to those young people who don't know what they want to do or are scared to talk about it?
Mhm. Sure. I think first and foremost, it has to come from the parents themselves. Parents need to be open-minded or ready to listen to the kids, because children, they may or may not be ready for careers, right? And it depends on what point of life that they're at. So maybe at the end of high school is where they have to think about college, and that's important for them to start thinking about it. So parents just being there and be attentive to children's needs is, I think, the very first step. Yes. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it definitely does. So it's like
Mhm.
that openness, I think, is really important. Coming at it from a therapist perspective, I'm always about parents being open with their children so they can be honest and vulnerable about things, because careers are huge. They're a
Mhm.
big part of our life. One of the first things we ask people are, what do you do? So that's a big
Mhm.
question. That's a big thing.
Right. And also not knowing what we want to do is totally fine, right? Because like I said, there's just so many opportunities out there. And as parents, our role is to support them all the way.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, the chat is open for anybody who has any questions. Um, I was thinking as a follow-up, I think, how early would you think it would be good to like get parents to kind of start talking about the different options out there?
Mhm. That's a good question. Research shows that children as young as 5 or 4 years old have started thinking about what they want to be, because they are socialized. So they see their parents, they see other adults in their life, like doing all sorts of jobs, and they want to emulate that. Like they want to follow that, right? So children at that age have already started thinking about it. And you can kind of see like in kindergarten or in elementary when the teachers ask, what's your goal is, or like, who do you want to be, right? And children can put anything that they want. But that may change as they grow up and as they learn from other adults or see other opportunities, or maybe see on TV. Um, so yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, you're right. And think about it, like for Halloween and costumes, kids want to be like any and everything when they grow up. Astronauts, the president. So yeah, that does start really early. So being open would be great at a very young age. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. So I would like to thank everyone for their time, and thank you again for joining us for our final Real Talk tonight. Thank you, Fatin, for educating us on this important topic. For the audience, please watch for a brief feedback survey that we will email to you. And again, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Cameron.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.